Monica was skipping after the old man. Grandfather Gaspard led his granddaughter down the path only he knew. An old double-barreled shotgun and a bag with some simple equipment were hanging on his shoulder. Although the forester knew the area well, he still carried a compass with him, looking at it once in a while. "You see, dear, getting lost in the taiga is all too easy. You should always make mental notes of a broken branch or some crushed grass or a boulder lying in some special way. All those things will become your own map of the place, and not a man-made one, but created by nature itself," the old man taught Monica. She was the most important person on earth to him, and she understood him without words. Gaspard lost his wife when he was still young. There wasn't much work in the region. He could either get a job in logging or fishing. Of course, there was also the option of hunting and selling game, but that was unacceptable for Gaspard. The man spent his childhood wandering through the forest full of alder and pine. He adored the taiga and all of its manifestations, even if it was wild, deserted, and unfriendly, but it was his home. He could never hunt down the inhabitants of the forest because he felt that he was one of them. Gaspard chose to work as a forester. He equipped a hut for himself near the river, built a small stone stove, and put a bed on top. Basically, he made it into a home where he could live. In the long evenings, the man liked to look at the fire and drink tea. He was left to himself for days on end. The man could observe the habits of animals and birds for hours, or he could explore the plant world. However, his life turned upside down when his daughter and son-in-law died in a car accident. Gaspard became the sole guardian of little Monica, and from then on, he devoted himself to raising his granddaughter. The little girl loved her grandfather with all her heart. The grandfather's love and care quickly returned a smile to the face of the orphaned child. "It's okay, baby girl. We're brave and strong because we are of the taiga breed," the old man often said to Monica, who carefully followed his every move and absorbed every word. When Monica grew up a bit, Gaspard started taking her into the forest with him. He opened the door to a new fairy tale world for the girl, full of mysteries and secrets. The grandfather didn't just teach Monica to enjoy the gifts of nature, but also to help the forest animals during hungry winters, feeding the birds with breadcrumbs and grain, and the sables with dried fish. One day, Gaspard saw a strange scene by the river. It made his hands shake and his hair stand on end. The old man instinctively hid his granddaughter behind his back and visibly tensed up. The wind blew in their direction, and the forester's sensitive nose caught the sharp smell of a predator. Not far from the river, a tigress was laying on her side, breathing heavily. The man took a couple of steps towards her and stopped, carefully watching the predator's reaction, but the wildcat only raised its muzzle and roared dully. It was a cry for help, because the tigress was wounded and also pregnant. The predator couldn't get up on her own. She looked exhaustedly at the man. He was her last hope. "Hush, hush, dear," the forester said peacefully and slowly knelt down beside the animal. "What should we do with you?" Gaspard asked, trying to collect his thoughts. Looking at the footprints around, the forester figured out what had happened that day. The young tigress decided to go out hunting. Having tracked down a wild boar, she drove it to the ravine because she knew that it would have nowhere to run from there. But the animal rushed to the river instead and jumped straight out to the gold miners. The men barely had time to grab their guns when the tigress followed the boar into their camp. Only the old, experienced poacher managed to shoot her. Fortunately, the bullet passed through soft tissues, miraculously missing the heart of the striped wild cat. Thanks to her powerful body, the tigress didn't lose her strength immediately, and the miners ran away scared. The forester approached the camp and felt the heat coming from the campfire. Apparently, he was right about what had happened, which meant that the miners could come back any minute. In the meantime, the predator calmed down and was breathing evenly. The old man slowly examined her wound. There was no way he could carry the animal to his hut, so Gaspard decided to arrange a sort of an infirmary for the tigress right there in the forest. Having dragged the limp body of the tigress over to the bushes, he made a dragging device from the branches, and together with Monica, they managed to drag the animal into the forest thickets. Then the grandfather cleaned the wound and applied the healing ointment to it. Gaspard and Monica took care of the wildcat for about a week. During this time, the animal got used to them and even allowed them to hand feed her. Then one day, the tigress gave birth to her first offspring. Monica grew very attached to the cubs. They were the personification of the forest's grace and beauty to the little girl. Monica named the cubs Chuck and Check, and after the tigress took them deep into the taiga forest, Monica came out to the river every morning to see them. Rumbling playfully and rubbing their muzzles against the girl, the cubs grew quickly, and the mother always tried to get them something tasty to eat, either a boar or some fish. After the incident with the tigress, the gold miner seemed to have disappeared off the face of the earth, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. One morning, some strangers in suits and ties came by. They measured something near the forester's hut for a long time. "What are you doing?" Gaspard asked the strangers. "Well, there's going to be a hunting ground here, old man. You know the kind. We'll fence a part of the forest and have some animals to make it easier for the rich men to hunt them," the young man said, smirking. "What hunting ground? Where?" "This has been my land since time immemorial. My father lived here, and now I'm living here with my granddaughter," Gaspard said, getting agitated. "Old man, I don't know anything about your life here. I'm just a small person. I do as I'm told. If you want to ask something, go talk to that man with the big belly and rings on his hands," the worker advised. Feeling anger rising in his soul, the forester went over to the stranger, who was clearly in charge of the whole process, acting as if he owned the place, waving his hands in all directions. "Hello? May I ask what gave you the right to make decisions about this land?" the old man asked the fat man with the rings in a calm tone. "What? Who are you? And what are you doing here? Are you some kind of goblin beggar?" the man snapped angrily. "I'm the local forester. I own this land, and I didn't give you permission to do anything with it," Gaspard replied, barely keeping his emotions in check. "Well, old man, it's not over yet. You'll give us that permission. We'll make sure of that," the unpleasant man said maliciously. The old man was speechless from such impudence. Even his evening tea couldn't help him calm down, so he shared his worries with Monica. "Trust me, Monica, I won't go back on my decision. These lands will never belong to some moneybags. They have no business coming here and hunting our animals. They decided to arrange a hunting ground, you see? Well, they will get their hunt if they don't back down." But the awful men weren't going to give up without a fight, so they sent the local chairman with an envelope stuffed with money to make a deal with Gaspard. But when the forester adamantly refused to step aside, they decided to try another approach. In the evening, a black SUV drove up to the old man's hut. Several strong young men in leather jackets got out, holding cans of gasoline, and started dousing the forester's hut with it. Gaspard put on his sheepskin coat and ran outside, followed by Monica. "What are you doing?" was all the old man managed to say. "I told you, old man, if you don't back down, you'll regret it. But you decided to stand your ground," said the ringleader maliciously and struck a match. The flames engulfed the forester's home. Gaspard rushed at the man with his fists, but he caught his hand and twisted it so badly that the old man heard his joints make a crunching sound. The thug was about to twist it further when suddenly he felt tiger fangs on his leg. Shouts and screams immediately filled the forest. The thugs rushed about like crazy, trying to dodge the claws of the tigress and her already grown cubs. The animals heard the forester screaming and came to see what was wrong. Seeing that the old man was in danger, they rushed to his aid, bringing a rather compelling argument into the discussion: their fangs and claws. After that incident, the situation seemed to have resolved. The thugs quickly gathered their equipment and took the first flight out, while the local residents worked together to build a new hut for the forester, and it was twice as big as the one he had before. Monica grew even more attached to the tigress and her cubs, while the striped predators came out to the forest edge every morning and escorted the girl to school, like invisible guards, making sure that the young girl had nothing to fear because she always had her tiger gang around.